Hello YouTube, this is Geographic Scholar, and today's video is going to be about the city of Detroit. Now, I've perused some of the online forums, and there are quite a few people who feel like the city of Detroit, there are people who they're saying, let Detroit die, or Detroit's a lost cause. I'm here to say that that's not really a correct way to look at that. And this is why. I'm going to point out to geography. And a better thing to look at it is not what Detroit once was or what Detroit could. Look at Detroit from what it's always been, from what it's been from a geographic perspective. Detroit, it has been the Motor City, and Detroit gets notoriety for its corruption, the crime, other problems, but a lot of people do not focus on how Detroit started and what Detroit's really about. And Detroit is more than just automobiles. Detroit is more. Detroit was founded in the early 18th century, early 1700s. It was founded long before the USA even became a country. It was founded by French explorers. And you look at the geographic position of Detroit. Now in this video, I'm gonna, let's just cue Google Earth. If you look at Google Earth and if you look at the location of Detroit, it's on the Detroit River. In fact, I'm going to give you a little heads up. Detroit is French for the Straits. That basically, Detroit's history, a big part of it has to do with water. Has to do with transportation, because it was on a major canoe route for voyageurs who are in the fur trade industry. It was a fur trading post. It was a military post. And it was in the center of this great this fur-bearing animal region. There are plenty of furs. And you look at its location. It's on water. And when you travel east, out of the Detroit River, south actually, you travel south and then east. You go south, you hit the Great Lakes, and then you hit the St. Lawrence Seaway. You go past Montreal, Quebec City, in Canada. That's Detroit. That's Detroit's location. It was at the center of so much stuff. Detroit, it was at the center of major waterways. You had a location where, stuff would come in out of the St. Lawrence Seaway. You go to Detroit, and then it would go west. That was water. During the 19th century, it was a major stop along the Underground Railroad. because it's right next to Canada. It's next to Canada, and you had runaway slaves go up to Detroit. You had all these runaway slaves who were trying to get away from slavery and get to freedom, because when you got to Canada, you were free. Detroit was a major stop because it's next to Canada, it borders Canada. Detroit was once the busiest waterway in the world. You had more cargo being shipped through the Detroit River than New York and London combined at one point in history. During the days of Prohibition, 3/4 of all the liquor that was being smuggled into the United States of America came through Detroit, because guess what was across the river? Windsor, Ontario, Canada. In Canada, they were still producing liquor. During the days of Prohibition, 3/4 of the liquor that came into the US, Detroit, because it was right next to Canada where they were still producing liquor. Today, there is a lot of cargo passing through the Detroit River. And the Detroit-Windsor corridor, that is the busiest border crossing on the US-Canadian border. It is very important. A large proportion of Canada's trade goes through that region. That is why Detroit is important. Not because of what it only produced, not because of automobiles. Detroit was important for that, but for what it's always been. It has always been a major transportation place. It has been a place for travel. It's been a major entrepôt, shall we say. It was at the center of so much stuff. It was at the center of the fur trade. It was a major point of transit for slaves trying to get to freedom. It was a major point of transit for people smuggling liquor into the US. It was a major point of transit for ships. It's still a major transit for trade. It's at a center of trade, at a center of travel. You have to look at the geography of Detroit. That's Detroit. Detroit is so much more than automobiles. And I say that because of Detroit's geography, Detroit, I say, hold on. Don't count Detroit out. Do not count Detroit out at all. Right now, US and Canada, they have agreed to build a brand new border crossing between the Detroit-Windsor corridor. And when this bridge is completed, it is supposed to boost trade. It's supposed to boost jobs. Don't count Detroit out. Do not count out Detroit. Detroit is so much more than automobiles. And it starts by recognizing the geography of Detroit. Geography helped form Detroit, and geography is going to keep helping Detroit onto the future. That is my piece about Detroit. This is Geographic Scholar, signing off.